Si más políticos en Latinoamérica prestaran atención a lo que la ciencia tiene que decir, otra sería nuestra realidad. Hoy tengo el honor de entrevistar a Neil deGrasse Tyson, una de las mentes más brillantes en el mundo, y personalmente su nuevo libro, Perspectivas Cósmicas para la Civilización, fue de gran inspiración para mi candidatura presidencial a Guatemala. Neil, thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for writing this book, which I think should be mandatory reading for all the political leaders in the world, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. It's wisdom for everybody, but especially for leaders who want to change the way things are. What inspired you to write it?
So thank you for asking, and thank you for your support of that. It started a long time ago where I was 14 years old, maybe, and I've been interested in the universe since I was 9 years old. But I'm 13 or 14, and there was a comet that was discovered with our biggest telescopes, and it was going to come around December. So they called it the Christmas comet, and it was going to be very bright and big, and no one had seen it before. And I go out into the street a few months later, and there's a full-grown adult with a sign saying, "The comet is coming. The end of the world is near. Repent now." And I said, "Wait a minute, you're a grown-up.
Right.
This is a comet. There are hundreds of comets. What? And that worried me because I had assumed naively that grown-ups knew more about the world than kids do.
Right.
And that's why grown-ups are leaders. That's why they are heads of industry and wield resources. So I started collecting examples in my life of people behaving in ways that are irrational, underinformed, misinformed, or just doing what they think is right, but is objectively false.
Right.
And so this book is the sum of all that I've observed occur in our civilization as a scientist. So I'll just give an example.
Yeah.
And some of it is just, are you consistent
Yeah.
with your ideas? One of the chapters, I look at vegetarians and meat eaters.
Yes.
Okay, there's one of the chapters. And just here's an example. Let's say you're a vegetarian because you don't want to kill animals. Okay? No one will fault you for that. And maybe in your home you have a mousetrap that captures them alive. It doesn't snap their neck. Okay? So now you capture it. Now what do you do with it? You take it back outside and release it to the wild, where it is guaranteed to be eaten by an owl, a hawk, a fox, or some kind of woodland predator. The average life expectancy of a mouse in the wild is between 9 and 18 months. So you know the best thing you could do for the mouse is leave it in your basement.
Right. Keep it. Pet it.
It will live many years, healthy life, in your basement.
Yeah.
And so there are things we do that we've only partially thought about. And what I've attempted to do here is to show you when you're a scientist, you look at every possible direction.
Correct.
And is my thinking complete? Is it biased? Do I think something is true that is not? Do I think something that is not true, but it actually is? And that's the kind of analysis that I offer so many things that we do in our society.
And that's exactly what leaders should be doing, analyzing every problem from every different aspect before making a decision. And you start with something like the world as it could be, not as it is, facts versus opinions. What is going on? How can you tell somebody that their feelings don't matter and that facts are more important? Because it seems to me that we're in a world where people are saying, like, if I feel this way, I don't care about the facts.
Yeah, I deeply embrace feelings. Feelings are an important feature of what it is to be human. But there are a lot of things to have feelings about that don't violate known laws of physics, okay? Yeah. So you can't say, I have a feeling that the sun is actually made of ice. No, you're wrong.
Right.
Okay? I'm sorry, you're wrong. reserve your feelings for things that don't conflict with objective reality. And then you could lead a very rich life of emotions as well as objective truths.
Right.
And the balance of those two can be a beautiful thing. But when one contaminates the other, you can end up making decisions that are not in your best interest.
Correct.
Of your health, your wealth, or your security, or especially if you are making decisions on behalf of others, such as family members, children, and the like, that wouldn't otherwise know better.
Right. And this is why it's so important to ego check our self-importance in the universe, which I think is one of your brilliant quotes in the book.
Yeah, we like to think of ourselves as the center of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give an example. Suppose you ate a little too much this week and you gain some weight. You can't next week protest the laws of physics or protest the laws of gravity. Right. Say, I want to repeal the laws of gravity. No, that you don't have that option. That's not how that works. And so when you think you're the center of things, where everything orbits you, it can be a rude awakening, as the saying goes, when you learn that that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in all fairness to people who think that way, go back many, many centuries. You would have crops, you would grow them, and you would notice that when the flowers would bloom or when it was time to harvest, the planets and the stars were a certain place in the sky. Mm-hmm. And maybe that repeated each year. Yeah. Your ego would say, the universe knows about me. The universe made this happen. My crop is talking to me. It is, and that's the urge. And I understand that. But that's why we invented science, to discover what we can control and what we can't, what we understand and what we don't, and when it's okay to have an ego, and when it's just not in your best interest, because you will have a distorted view of the world.
And that's how you start with Science and Society. Why is science far from a cold and feelingless enterprise that never conforms? Because sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to trust science. And as you say, the good thing about science is that it is real, whether you believe on it or not. But you don't see it as something cold. On the contrary.
Yeah, because science, thank you for bringing that up. Because I don't want the cold facts, I want my emotion. Right? This is how people think about it.
Yeah.
But what has science done for you? Science has understood thermodynamics. So I have made for you clothing that is warmer than any previous generation of clothing has been.
Right.
If you go back several decades, in order to be warm, you walk out of the house with big, bulky clothing. And now we know how to... So science is improving your life.
Right.
Science and the applications of science matter to your happiness. So when I say science is not cold and unfeeling, it is, well, maybe the base laws of physics don't care about you, but the people who apply them to civilization, the only thing they do is think about you and your comfort and your safety. Yeah. There is no modern life without the applications of science, technology, and engineering to your health and your safety. So I don't separate the two.
8 billion human beings, some of them embrace science and some of them deny it. I come from a region in the world that sadly, ignoring science, ignoring evolution, chooses horrible political leaders and cultural leaders that rather embrace, racism, nationalism, other forms of primitive philosophies, and just ignore
Don't
science.
Don't elevate it to philosophy.
Yeah, it's not even that.
It's not even that.
It's not even that.
Primitive musings.
Primitive musings, exactly.
Yes.
And it seems to me that even if we're 8 billion people, we're separating from the people that embrace objective truths and the ones that do not want to embrace those objective truths. And science wires your brain differently. How does that happen?
Yeah, so you said a lot there. Let me unpack it. So first, we say that people vote in terrible leaders. I've come to learn, in my old age, because I'm an old man now, that it's not the politicians' fault
Yeah.
that people voted for them.
Agreed. Agreed. Supply and demand.
But no, so I say you can beat them on the head and say, why do you think the universe began in 6 days, 6,000 years ago? Well, that's because the people who voted me into office think that way.
Right.
So that's what I mean. It's not their fault if
No,
it's an elective republic or democracy. So as an educator, I don't look at the politicians. I turn back and I say, who are the people who are doing the voting?
Correct.
And let me tell them what the world is. And I will say, yes, in a free country, you can believe what you want, but if you're going to rise to power over others and then create laws or legislation, those laws and legislation should be based on what is objectively true, because if it is, then it applies to everyone.
Right.
But if you walk up there with only personal truths, these are truths that you feel are true, but they don't show up in an equation or they're not in a textbook. They're just what you feel. Go ahead. But to force that on someone else, when that's just your feelings, I don't know what kind of country that is.
Yeah.
That's a country where everyone becomes homogenized into one directive. We've seen history of this.
Yeah.
Look at Nazi Germany. Everyone has one mindset. Okay? We are superior to everybody else. Oh, you're defective in some way that I have defined. I will either kill you, sterilize you, so that we don't get any more of you. Yeah. These are ideas that are not based in objective reality.
Right.
And when they start taking over a culture or a civilization, it never ends well.
Your second chapter is about truth and beauty, because you make the two like mirroring each other. Is there such thing as objective values and priorities for humanity as a whole?
Yeah, so I would say that science, which finds objective truths, allows you to now use foundational truths to assert the values you want to have in civilization. So it won't necessarily tell you what value to have, but it will inform your thinking about the value.
Yeah.
Okay? So suppose, let's take an example. Suppose you have some people who say, women should never, put women back in the kitchen, okay? And that's their value. And I would ask them, well, why? Why do you feel this way? Well, that's where they belong. And then I try to appeal. Rather than hit them over the head, I would say, so half the population, you don't want them thinking about how to make a better world? How about the mathematicians that are there that are now cooking your dinner, but they could have been discovering something new?
Correct.
The engineers, astronauts. What about all the things they could be doing, and now you're preventing them? It feels to me that you are regressing civilization by disenfranchising half of the population. Is that really what you're after here? And then if you put it that way in front of the population, say, hey, no, I want to keep moving forward.
Right.
I want everybody to participate. I want this. And so, and then you can, fortunately, today, you can point to examples where women have made great strides and are leaders and are captains of industry. And so then the person, as you keep revealing this, the person looks more and more ridiculous.
Yeah.
They look like, no, go back to the 1950s, okay?
Yes.
That's the last time that was a thing. But the rest of us have moved on. Because at some point you have to convince them that they're barking up the wrong tree.
Correct.
Right.
And you talk about objective truths existing independently if our senses perceive them or not. How is that so?
Oh, yeah, because our senses, we think of them as, I know what's going on. I can see it, hear it, feel it, taste it. No, you don't. You know some of what's going on.
Okay.
You don't know it all.
Like in this office, I can see some of what's going on, but I wish I could see everything that is going on.
Right, no, there's stuff going on here, okay? The camera can see this.
Yes.
This is what time would do if we tracked it in a counterclockwise way. This is a perfectly accurate clock, but just moves counterclockwise.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, huh? What? You gotta like look at that. What is going on? So yeah.
420.
So, this is 425.
425.
Yeah. There you go. So you're getting good. You're
great.
good. You're good. I knew you had that in you. No. So the point is, your senses are not the total measure of what's going on in this world. Civilization made major leaps once science figured out how to measure things that your senses could not.
Right. Like you speak in Cosmos about the X-rays.
X-rays, for example. Oh my gosh. There's a form of light that does not stop at your skin. It goes through your hand and you can see the bones. Oh my gosh. Who ordered that?
Yeah.
I mean, we call them X-rays in Europe, the Röntgen rays, with Wilhelm Röntgen, a German physicist. So in science, when someone says, I think I have a sixth sense, right? You've heard people say this.
Yeah.
I'll say, fine, but I have 12 senses as a scientist. Okay?
That's a good one.
I can see infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays.
With your microscope,
I got
with
a
your telescope.
I got, you got nothing on me, all right? I mean, think about it. Let's go to the Middle East. There's a body of water called the Dead Sea. Why is it called the Dead Sea? Well, because the people looked up and they didn't see any fish. There's no fish in there. It's highly salty, right? And the fish life they don't see it and say there's dead.
I thought it because you float like a corpse.
Oh, that too. It's very buoyant and you can float. Everything will float, whether you're the corpse or alive. In a microscope, there are little microbes in it, but they didn't have a microscope.
Right.
So they named it according to their senses, but with more senses, maybe they would not have named it that.
Correct.
I don't know. I wasn't around, but once you know more about something, it changes not only what you might call it, but how you would interact with it, how it fits with other things in your life and in your environment. And so science has opened our eyes.
Right.
In so many ways. Rather, it has opened our senses. All of them. You know the old saying, I don't know if it's true in other languages, if a tree fell in the forest and no one is there to hear it.
Did it fall?
No, did it make a sound? I don't know if you ever heard that. That's people say that every now and then. And my answer is, first, how do you know it fell? Okay.
Good point.
Start with that.
Yes.
But now, you're defining sound by whether a human being heard it.
Yeah, right.
There are whistles that make a sound you can't hear, but dogs come running.
Correct.
Are you going to say now it's not a sound just because you didn't hear it? That's very big of your ego to think that the world orbits your own senses.
Right.
So, no.
But even if there's no living being capable of listening,
I can make a device.
Right.
I can make a chart recorder, put it there, come back the next day, and I see that it moved. It's sound.
It's about measuring.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is what science has done for us. Yeah. It's why planes fly. All right? It's why rockets get us to the moon.
Yeah.
What do you think? People say, I don't believe in science, as they talk on their smartphone to grandma 1,000 kilometers away while they're walking down the street. Excuse me? What do you think we do? What do you think we're about? What kind of life do you think you're leading? Yeah. Sorry, I'm screaming at you.
No, it's okay. You can scream. I'm half Cuban. I'm used to it. It's fine. You scream all you want.
My blood is boiling here, yes? So science has become so fundamental that people take it for granted.
Correct. Carl Sagan used to say that. We have all people using science, but they don't understand how it works.
And they don't. And some have come into denial that it works at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Even leaders, and that's for me, it's very preoccupying.
Oh, and by the way, I don't care if a leader knows science. I want them to know that they don't know it.
Right.
And then have advisors that they then can trust.
That's what I'm doing with you.
Okay.
I am getting the best advice.
You can't get all leaders to know everything.
Absolutely.
That's unrealistic. And often a leader is voted for because of their charisma or they have a certain way. So I get that. which is odd though.
Yeah.
Would you hire the head of your corporation just if they're good looking or if they have a swagger? No, you want to look at their resume.
Curriculum. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the CV. You want to look at that. But we vote presidents into office just because you might want to have a beer with them. That's a weird thing for me. But the highest office in the land, you don't look at their resume. You just, do they sound convincing?
Yeah.
But if they have people they trust, then I'm okay with that.
You talk about your experiences with conservatives and Democrats and how they are in
Well, I have to
contradictions
toot your horn here on
sometimes.
3 cameras. Loved your 2 books, How to Talk to a Liberal, How to Talk to a Conservative.
Yes.
No one does that. Who writes that book? No one does. This right here. There she is. She did it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, because we need to bridge those gaps. And this leads me to the next question. How can personal truths lead to dictatorships?
Yeah, you have to watch out because I define a personal truth. I define 3 kinds of truth in the Truth and Beauty chapter. And the reason why I define 3 instead of 1 kind of truth is there's certain places in society that use the word truth, and I didn't want to take it away from them.
Right.
If you look at almost any religious website, it'll talk about God and truth. Truth is a major word there. I don't want to take that away. But what I want to highlight for you is that variety of truth is a personal truth.
Right.
If Jesus is your Savior, and you are sure of that, that's a personal truth. Jesus might not be someone else's Savior. Muhammad could be their last prophet on earth, and for you to convince someone else of your personal truth typically requires a very strong act of persuasion.
Or violence.
And in the limit, violence.
Yeah.
Organized warfare. In the limit. And that disturbs me. Which is why in a free country, you're allowed to have your personal truth, but you don't have the freedom to require other people share your personal truth. Because that's taking away their freedoms. Okay. So now, another kind of truth is what I call political truth. That's the same thing as propaganda. You repeat something often enough, must be true. Okay. Right. This is, and you know what's happening there? It is the modern system of advertising, basically, hijacking an evolutionary urge to determine what is true because you see it happen often. Okay, you see a lion chase a zebra and it catches it, and it keeps doing that. It's going to catch a zebra the next time too. And you don't want it to catch you. So the repeated things you see help you establish your own behavior in this world. For things, you'll do things that are good for you and avoid things that are bad. Lions no longer chase us down the street, okay? So this repeat pattern has been hijacked by advertisers, so they just repeat it. Let's go back to Nazi Germany. You are the greatest. You are a race of Germans, and you are the best. And you keep repeating that, millions of people believe it.
Yeah.
And just the same way with personal truths, if you believe it on such a level that other people don't, you may be prone to commit violence against them.
Absolutely.
And so suppose you feel this way, and by the way, I can say you are the greatest because you are German race, Aryan race. This feels good to you. I'm special, I'm important. My leader tells me that. Yeah. So now I vote for the leader. And then all these people become followers of a leader whose story is that you are better than other people.
Yeah.
And we've seen examples of this.
Everywhere.
In history.
Yeah.
And if your ideas are not founded in objective truths, you are building, as we say, a house of cards. From the outside, it looks like, yeah, Hitler knows what he's doing. He's got to... No, there's nothing there. There's no there there.
Yeah.
And as I said, they never end well. So, yes, it's easy for a leader to pander to what you want to be told, to what you want to be true. And then you just believe it because, first of all, it's a personal truth and it gets repeated.
Right.
And then everybody just follows it. Is that anything different from a cult? Every cult that I know, there's a person saying everybody else is bad and I have the answers. Join my cult. Oh, and by the way, the world is going to end too.
Yes.
So
Always the world is ending.
and it's not going to end in 500 years. It's going to end in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
So let's all get together and do what I tell you. And that way, no. So science literacy is so important for the future of civilization.
Let's talk about one of the most beautiful objective truths, biology. And it reminded me when I was reading this chapter of the motto of the movie Moulin Rouge, that is beauty, freedom, truth, and love. It's like those four work in a circle, and you explain how biology is one of the most beautiful objective truths.
Well, yeah, so we are alive. We are alive. I think it's in the mind and body chapter,
yes.
Perhaps. Yeah. Or was it the life or death chapter? But biology, when you think of physics, it's very foundational in our understanding of the universe. There is no understanding of chemistry without physics. There is no understanding of biology without chemistry. And biology is the most complex form of chemistry we know.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Chemistry is everywhere. Salt is chemistry, sodium and chloride, and air and water. That's all chemistry. Put it all together in this complex way, and we get something called life.
Yeah.
Now, let's think of human life for a moment. How many people have ever been born? About 100 billion. You can maybe it's between 80 and 100 billion in the history of the world. Well, how many total kinds of people can you make? We know the genome. Let's rearrange them in all kinds of ways and start asking how many people can we make? Is it someone just like you, except 1 inch shorter and 1 inch taller, a little different, a little tall? How many people? If you run that number, it's at least a 1 with 30 zeros. It's at least a billion, trillion total possible humans. At least that.
Wow.
That is so far beyond just 100 billion that I can say with some certainty that most people who could exist will never even be born.
Wow.
Which means we are here, alive, in this moment, against all odds. Richard Dawkins speaks poetically about this, that we get to die. And you say, well, I don't want to die. Dying is bad. Wait a minute. You got to die because you got to live. Most people who could exist will never die because they will never even be born.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And so I value every moment I'm alive. The knowledge that I'm going to die gives meaning to my life every day. When I wake up and say, how many days I got left? Okay, I still got this book to write. I got these people to say hi to. I've got the more love to give. Just whatever that is. And if I can give a quick example here about the meaning that is enhanced by the knowledge of death. If a loved one brought you flowers and they were plastic, you laugh. You can't even keep a straight face. But wait a minute. The plastic flowers will live forever.
Right.
They're beautiful and they'll be beautiful forever. But no, you'll have none of it. Why? You want the flowers to be alive.
To smell them.
Because now they're handed to you. And you go find a jar. You fill it with water. You put them in. And then 2 days later, the sunlight enables the petals to open. And then you can smell them. And you can, every day, and you change the water 3 days later. And then you watch them through their senescence as they get older. And the neck of the flower bud begins to weaken. and the flower bud does this. A week later, you gather the flowers and you discard them. The fact that they were going to die meant you created a relationship with them that had meaning for every single day they were sitting on your mantle or sitting on your table. So life, the biology of life that keeps us alive, I claim the knowledge of our death is what gives meaning to life.
Absolutely.
And on my tombstone, there's a quote from a famous educator, Horace Mann, an American educator from 200 years ago. He gave a speech at a graduation, and he says, one of his final speeches, he says, I beseech you, that's a word I think we should bring back.
Beseech.
To beseech.
Okay.
Beseech, to compel someone to. He says, I beseech you to treasure up in your heart these, my parting words. Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I want that on my tombstone.
Yeah?
That's
Okay,
what
we have it in
Okay, guys,
recording.
you have the record.
So you better keep it.
So, and there could be biology elsewhere in the universe. We would call them aliens.
Yeah.
And throughout the book, I throw in an alien
Yeah.
to just look at things, right?
Yes, yes.
I just throw in an alien. Alien comes and they sees, oh, what a beautiful planet. There's oceans and land and clouds. And they get a little closer. And they see one species all over, the humans.
Yes.
And so, well, they're a successful species. They get a little closer, and they see them fighting each other because they have different skin color, or different phenomes come out of their mouth, or they born on a different line in the sand.
Yeah.
Or
Divided by water.
But divided by this liquid, or they worship this god instead of that god, or no god.
Like an ant farm.
Right. And they're killing each other for these reasons. Aren't they the same species? Isn't it one continent? Isn't it the same planet? They'll run home to their home planet and say there's no sign of intelligent life on Earth.
There's something that you say in that beauty and biology and truth and life, that you say not all that is natural is beautiful, and not all that is beautiful is natural. And what is the most beautiful thing about the universe? You question and you say that it is knowable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm all for that as one of the more beautiful things to contemplate. That our brain that rose up out of tide pools, okay?
A jacuzzi.
A
super ancient jacuzzi.
Yes, an ancient, primordial jacuzzi. Yes, I like that reference. That this brain can discover science, discover mathematics, put them together, and decode the universe, revealing that the universe is knowable at all. The fact that we can take a rocket on Earth and land it in a crater. Earth is a moving platform, and intersect a moving target on Mars and land it in a crater that we previously mapped by other missions. That's some powerful science. Yeah. And the fact that we know how it works in this universe is a triumph of the human intellect. How is it that we can have such intellect, yet some people just abandon its use? Galileo said this. Yeah. He says, I refuse to believe that God would give us this brain, I'm paraphrasing, that God would give us this brain and brain power, and then somehow expect us to forego its use. So, yeah, I think that's one of the more beautiful things about the universe.
That is noble.
That's maybe second to something more beautiful than that. That the very atoms in our bodies, the molecules that those atoms make, yes, where did they come from? I asked that of my chemistry teacher in high school. So, well, they're in the earth. Well, how did they get into the earth? He didn't have an answer. I had to wait until later. Yeah. These atoms are forged in the centers of stars. The Big Bang births the universe with hydrogen and helium, and stars take those base ingredients and make carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and silicon and all iron. All these other ingredients are forged in the centers of stars that then explode, scattering that enrichment to the rest of the galaxy, out of which the next generations of star systems are formed, including one that has what we call the sun and one planet called Earth, on which we have life. Yeah. So, you want an example of beauty? Is that we can stand here and look up in the night sky and say, I'm alive in this universe. Yes, but looking upon those stars, you can also realize that the universe is alive within us. Yeah. We are part of a great unfolding cosmic story. When I look back on Earth and all the petty reasons why people have conflict with each other, often based on what they want to be true rather than on what is true, yeah, it saddens me. It makes me worried for the future of civilization, that we are not wise enough, scientifically literate enough, with the proper management of our emotions to guide the next generation into the future. I fear that they will be embarrassed by what we have handed them rather than be proud of what we built for them.
You're gonna make me cry.
Oh, no!
No, because it is true, and I have a lot of hope in humanity, and once we know more about science, it amazes you, it fills you more than any religious myth can ever do.
It's a connectivity.
Yeah.
We're not only connected, think about it, we are connected to each other biologically. Yeah. All life on Earth is biologically connected with common strands of DNA. And so we are connected to each other biologically, to Earth chemically, and to the rest of the universe atomically. So that when I see people fighting one another, they're somehow honing in on these tiny differences and making a world out of those tiny differences.
Yes.
Rather than celebrating how it is that we're all the same.
Then you go to your next chapter, Earth and Moon. You talk about politics, bigotry, racism, protests dissipate when we contemplate Earth's first selfie, the pale blue dot.
Yes.
You know, and that gives a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I think so. If provided everyone can be tracked in that way, to think about Earth, you know, not as a place of conflict, but as a place to celebrate being alive on this third rock from the sun.
Yeah. Now, how effective have global causes been in solving problems from a planetary perspective since we went to the moon?
Yeah, so let me just highlight that. So we went to the moon to explore the moon, and then we looked over our shoulder. Hey, what is that? That's Earth.
Right.
We went to the moon to explore the moon, and we discovered Earth for the first time. And you know how I know that? Because between 1969 and 1973, 72, 73, those are the years we were walking on the moon. Okay? We didn't do it before then, and we haven't done it since. In those years, I can start off with the United States because we kind of started this first, and then it spread around the world. In those years, what did we do? We created the Environmental Protection Agency. We created the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to think about the weather and the climate and the interaction of the oceans with the air. We banned leaded gas. We took lead out of the environment. We banned DDT. We created Clean Air Acts and clean water. All of that happened over that time. Yeah. And you know what else happened? The first Earth Day.
Yeah, that's true.
It wasn't in 1960 or 1950 or 1980. It happened while we were walking on the moon. So I submit to you that no one thought to think about Earth that way. Looking back over our shoulder, because then you saw how isolated it is in the vacuum dark of space. Then you say, maybe I should cherish that.
Yeah.
care for it. And it reminds me of the quote by Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who did go to the moon. And he was interviewed in Time magazine in 1971. And they said, well, how do you feel when you look back on Earth? And he says, you develop I'm quoting, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty.
Yes.
You want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, look at that, you son of a bitch.
I would love to go to space if there is space. Because it is true. It's like when you see that ant farm that is having these differences just becomes united.
Yes,
you know?
It is a highly uniting perspective and force. Yes.
You talk about that, like scientists are more capable of generating and sustaining peace for all nations because of these reasons, because it gives you perspective.
Yeah, let me suggest that scientists, we all speak the same language.
Right.
As one of the language of math, the language of the laws of physics, and some of the greatest collaborations in the history of the world. Well, the biggest collaboration in the history of the world are world wars.
Yes, you talk about this.
We technically have to call those collaborations.
Yeah, War, International Space Station, Olympics, and the World Cup in that order.
In that order, yes.
This is objective reality on how we're spending our money.
The International Space Station,
right?
The World Cup and the Olympics and World Cup. Okay, so 3 out of those 4 involve competition.
Correct.
One of them is complete cooperation. And that's the International Space Station.
Yeah.
Scientists and engineers getting together to a common goal.
Right.
So scientists may be the best hope, if not the only hope, for peace in the future of civilization. Like I said, because our language transcends boundaries and culture and religion and all these things that we've fought over with one another through time.
Right. When you put it in perspective and we calculate the risks and we see that war is number 1 in this scale, you then go and talk about risk and reward. And you talk about the cost-benefit calculations on what we feel and the decisions that we make.
That was a difficult part to write about, because we make decisions based on feelings more often than on data.
Right.
So I'll just give an example. It feels like it's an absurd example, but it still highlights what I'm talking about. We have certain neighborhoods in the United States, suburban neighborhoods, where there's deer that are running amok, okay? And they're beautiful to look at. They cross your backyard. Oh, look out the window, there's a deer. Until you're driving at night and there's a deer in the street and you hit the deer. So when you hit a deer, one of 3 things happen. You'll kill the deer and there's mild damage to your car.
Have you hit a deer?
How do you hit it?
Have you hit it?
No, but a deer has run into me.
Oh,
that was crazy.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm driving another deer, ran into the side of my car, broke my side view mirror.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn. Okay, watch where you're going. Okay. Someone joked that there shouldn't be signs saying deer crossing. In the forest, it should say road crossing. Think about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's the road crossing the forest.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Not the deer crossing the road. So it's all perspective.
Correct.
So we have to get rid of the deer somehow. So because they're causing deaths, human deaths. All right? If it kills the deer, we can get over that. If it kills you, that's okay. All right. So someone did a calculation and they said, we could reintroduce the predator cat that was once there 400 years ago. The bobcat or the puma or the mountain lion type, and they will prune the population
of deer
in a natural way. Okay? However, you'll lose a few children from your backyard.
Right.
Okay.
Cost benefit.
Okay. These bobcats will eat a few children. Well, if you have no heart in this calculation, you would say, well, how many children? You lose, they did the calculation on the size of the neighborhood and how many deer are there. You lose maybe 5 to 10 children, but you'll save 40 other lives a year. So the death toll will go from 40 down to 10. I don't think anyone is going to say yes to that.
No, of course not.
You don't want your children, no,
Yeah.
they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Even though fewer people will die.
Right.
So there comes a time where when you're making a law, the emotions of people involved, I recognize, are going to matter. Even in the face of the data. I recognize that. But I want you to be self-aware that you are killing more people by one solution than another. Maybe this is an excuse to try to find yet a third solution.
Right.
Where neither of these happen and everybody's happy. So that reminds me, it's not so much in the book, but you know how we used to test cars and the damage to humans? They used pigs. They put pigs behind the steering wheel. A hog is about the same body mass as a human. They put them in the car and watch what happens to them.
Alive.
Alive.
Wow.
And they watch how they break bones and all of this. Okay. Then PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, says, no! No! And they made a big outcry. So the Transportation Safety Board, they said, all right, we can't keep doing this. Well, how else are we going to do it? They invented the crash test dummy.
Science again.
Science
saving us.
again! And the crash test has sensors everywhere, and you create it in a way that it breaks with the same force that a bone would break. And now you know way more information than you ever knew killing pigs in car accidents. That's the solution that you landed on because no one was happy with the previous other solutions.
Right. Now that you talk about pigs, let's talk a little bit about cows, because climate change advocates say that cows create way more pollution than carbon emissions of planes, for example, or fossil fuels. What is the scientific take on that?
Yeah, I don't think they create more, but the methane
Yeah.
that comes out of cows, methane is a natural byproduct of metabolism in the absence of oxygen. So it's called anaerobic metabolism, which happens in our own bodies,
Right.
down deep in your gut. There's no oxygen there. So there's some methane there. But cows are like supreme methane generating animals. So yeah, I think if you care about climate change, then, and you want to do something about it, one of the things is to reduce your consumption of farm animals or go entirely plant-based,
Right.
if that's what you're going to do. Or, again, maybe there's a third solution, okay? The solution I can't wait to have is lab-grown meat proteins.
With no methane.
Well, yeah, because we just grow the meat in the lab. And it's the same sort of genetic properties of the cow, except no living creature was harmed, and no methane was caused, and nothing. And so, make me some hamburger. I'll be first in line.
Me too.
First in line. And so I like the idea that when you're clever, people who are suffering under one decision or another, maybe there's yet a third decision that is a better one than anyone had previously thought of.
Right.
So I look forward to the future ingenuity of our species in solving so many of these problems.
And you end that chapter of Risk and Reward talking about how can meat create a machine.
Oh,
And that's a really good one.
yeah, I quoted a section of a novel, a science fiction novel, by the author. His last name is Bisson, Bisson. You can look him up. He's written many things, but I think he's most famous for this short essay called "They're Made of Meat." It's a conversation between two aliens who came upon Earth, and one of them is reporting back to the other alien, saying, well, what can you say about these life forms? They're made of meat. No, they can't possibly be made of meat. Meat can't, you're telling me, you're getting me to believe that meat can be conscious? Yes, I tell you, they're made of meat. Well, what sent us these radio signals? Well, machines. sent the radio signals. Well, okay, well then I want to talk to the machines. No, you don't understand. The meat made the machines. How could the meat make the machines? That can't be possible. Yeah. What? It's a whole, this goes on and on and on. Again, it's another perspective.
Yeah, of course.
Where we think, and by the way, there are people who don't want to kill animals because animals have brains.
Right.
And they value the brain. And I'm thinking, well, but you're slaughtering plants. So you're a brain chauvinist.
Right.
Okay, a brain bigot. You value brains. Meanwhile, the tree that you cut down to build your home would have lived 100 years. Yeah. But you cut it down.
And the mycelium beneath the
mycelium,
forest.
all of this.
It's neurons.
It's an entire kingdom. There's a fungal kingdom and a plant kingdom. Mm-hmm. But just think about a tree for a moment. It makes oxygen. It makes 15 times the mass of that mouse you just saved in oxygen. But you cut down the tree to make the home you're living in. Yeah. Who do you think nature cares more about? Your 30-gram mouse or the 50 trees you cut down to make your home? The tree makes oxygen. The tree is home to birds, to squirrels, to insects. And every one of those trees will live 100 years. Maybe the tree, by the way, if you cloak a tree, does it not wilt? If you cut a tree, does it not bleed? If you cut down a tree, does it not wither and die? Yeah. And you're saying, I prefer animal life, this mouse, to a tree? Who do you think nature cares more about? And maybe a tree doesn't have a brain or a beating heart because it doesn't need one.
Correct. It's interconnected with the rest.
It pumps fluid throughout its entire circulation system without a heart. Don't judge a tree to be less than you because it doesn't have a heart.
You know, talking about a unified perspective, many years ago, I did a reforestation volunteer program in Guatemala. We planted 50,000 trees. And the way I got to that solution was, what is the thing that can serve everybody? Well, we all breathe, regardless of gender, of race, of age. We all breathe.
Yes.
So the most useful thing that you can do for humanity is plant a tree.
And it serves everyone.
And it serves everyone,
yes.
Regardless of
anything. And by
anything.
the way, the air molecule, the oxygen molecules it makes, they don't just stay over Guatemala.
No.
They will circulate around the planet.
The whole pale blue dot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So plant a tree, please. This takes me to the next chapter about gender and identity and, uniting and non-uniting. I recently watched a documentary called What is Woman, where they go and ask, what is a woman? And you have amazing takes on gender and identity. So I wanted a scientific explanation. What is a woman?
Oh, so you want to ask me? Yeah, so I devote a whole chapter to this, gender and identity. So let me back up by saying one of the shortcomings, I was going to say a feature, but that implies that it's a good thing. One of the shortcomings of the human mind is that we require that things be put in categories in order to think about them, talk about them, and understand them.
Right. Concepts. Yeah.
Yeah. So we say, oh, are you this or are you that? Or okay, and we do that even when there is no real reason to make categories. For example, hurricane strengths. Hurricanes. It's a continuous scale of wind speeds of the storm and barometric pressure in the center. It's a continuum. But we've come in and made 5 categories. There they are, okay? So watch what happens. A hurricane comes, goes from low category 3, let's say, to a high category 3. No one thinks anything about it. It's just category 3. But if it goes 1 kilometer an hour faster, it's breaking news. Hurricane Irma now category 4. Everybody says, oh. So the fact that our brain can't think on a continuum and then we bend them has shaped how we even think about hurricanes. And that saddens me because it removes a real diversity of what's actually out there. So now, let's get back to gender and identity. We could talk chromosomes, X, Y, X, okay? You can be chromosomally male, a chromosomally female, and in a small fraction of cases, there are variations on those too, where you get intersexual people. But let's stay with the majority case here. You can be biologically male, chromosomally male, chromosomally female. That's unambiguous. Okay, let's put that aside. Now let's ask: do you see this in people? Do you look at their chromosomes? Actually, you don't. What do you look at? Other things. And I did this experiment, all right? I sat in the subway in the winter, so everyone's wearing a heavy coat, and I looked at everybody's face that's sticking out of their coat, and I say, can I identify who is male and who is female? And I said, let me try that. And I did it, and I'm 100% accurate in the following way. I knew who was female. How do I know? They, on average, had longer hair. They were wearing eye makeup, mascara. The earrings were longer. Their eyebrows were tweezed. Okay, thinner eyebrows. They're using the color on the cheeks, the blush. Oh, how about the man? Okay, the man. Okay, they're either wearing their mustache or beard, or they went to the gym and had bigger muscles than they otherwise would have had, and they're wearing man clothing. And how do you know to wear man clothing? Just go to the store. They already know what clothing to sell you if you want to be a man. They will sell you those clothes. Same with the women. These are girl clothes, and those are boy clothes. Buy only in this section. And I realized nearly 100% of what I was queuing on were secondary and tertiary things we do to ourselves to announce to people what our gender is.
Correct.
What happens if the woman's chest is too small? You go in and get breast enlargement surgery, as 300,000 women in the United States do every single year. Because whatever they were born with, that's not enough. Let's boost it. And like I said, what does the man do if they're skinny? Let's get muscles.
Right.
Okay? Look at what we're doing to announce our gender. And so what I tell you is, you're not looking at the chromosomes. You are looking at society's definition of what you are that you have bought into. So now, in a free society, suppose I say, I feel 80% male and 20% female today. I'm going to mix it up. That's what I feel. So then I dress that way. If I dress 50-50, if I dress how I want, I already have the tools. The tools is the makeup tray. The tools is what I do at the gym. The tools are my clothing.
Tools that we have thanks to science and cosmetics and all of that, yeah.
All of these tools are secondary and tertiary add-ons to our chromosomes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now watch. In the United States, and I bet in other countries too, I read that we value life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness. If I feel like a girl today and I want to be a girl, why should you care at all?
Right.
I'm pursuing my happiness. If I want to go neither and be, quote, androgynous, 50-50, whatever, why should you care? Oh, I know why you care. You know why? Because your brain is binary. You say, are you a boy or a girl? I have to know. I got to put you in the category. Yeah. Whereas we know that people express themselves on a spectrum.
Right.
We know. They did that before it was even talked about as a political football. Yeah. We've known this. Let's go back to Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc. She was put to death, burned at the stake. Do you know why she was burned at the stake?
For dressing like a man.
Half the case against her was dressing like a man.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to lead soldiers into battle with a skirt riding side saddle on a horse?
Correct.
That doesn't work. So she's got to wear pants for that. But maybe she was our first androgynous person in the public eye.
Well, Jesus wore a skirt before. And he was also crucified.
But see what happens?
Not for wearing a skirt.
That's not good. It doesn't work out. So all I'm saying is there's no shortage of examples of people not fulfilling the
Right.
gender expectations of their chromosomes.
Yeah.
And that turning out to deeply upset other people for reasons that are not entirely clear, other than they're intellectually lazy because they don't know how to think about something that actually exists on a continuum.
And in that
That
continuum,
whole chapter explores all of this.
yeah,
And I talk about Joan of Arc.
yeah, you do, and it's amazing how in that continuum you put the categories of government, which are super simple and basic, like Asian, Hispanic,
yes.
white, but you also put the skin makeup. If you go to a store, to a pharmacy, and you look at all the colors
Yes.
of skin makeup
Yes.
versus the government saying that there's only 5 or 6 races.
Exactly. Yeah. In the census, what race are you? Or even ethnicity? They still want to put you in a category.
Yeah.
Or if a crime is committed, the police officer says, was the person white, black, Hispanic, or Asian? What? Really? That 4 categories? Really? I've been in the pharmacy in the hair color aisle.
Yes.
There's 200 colors of hair. Each box has a different model displaying a hair color that has a name. Or you go to an interior decorator's catalog and you open it up and you see all the... Do you know there are 150 shades of white in the Benjamin Moore catalog of paints? And all the police... So what I think the police should do is they should have...
Their catalog.
The catalog, they should have the designer catalog and open it up and get them in and say, oh, what was the skin color, the hair color, and find where they are in that spectrum.
Yes.
Rather than just... Because I'm picked up by the cops because someone says a black man did it, and the person could have been much lighter skinned than me or darker skinned, but because it's been categorized, it has distorted an understanding of reality. And I'm disappointed in my own species, especially in a country where one of the founding documents extols the virtues of the pursuit of happiness. And now you want to bin someone into one of 2 categories because you don't know how to think about it any other way.
Yeah. You also talk about law and order, and it made me think, what are rights from a scientific perspective?
Yeah, so I think the way to think about this is science can help inform whatever conversation you have about rights. So let's say I want the right to own a gun, let's say. Well, I would say, well, why do you want the right? You start asking questions. And they'd say, oh, well, because it's in our Constitution. But then I would say, the Constitution also endorsed slavery and required amendments to undo that. Right? So is it just because it's in the Constitution by our founding fathers, does that make it correct? Just because it's there? So you can't say yes to that because there are many rules that were put in place that have been overturned since then by sensible conversation and debate.
Right.
Okay, so you say, well, I want to own a gun because I don't want my government to
Violate my rights.
to violate my government to violate your rights. And then I say, you realize the government has ballistic missiles. Okay?
Right.
The government has tanks. The government has bazookas. Okay? It seems to me...
Nuclear weapons.
If nukes, right. If the government wanted to do this, you standing on your porch with that gun will make no difference at all. It just seems to me.
Yeah.
Okay? So they say, I want it for self-defense. So then I would say, well, let's look at the data on self-defense. You want to protect your family. So let's look at all the families that have guns and see how often the gun was used in self-defense versus how often the gun was used against one's own family members, either in suicide or in domestic violence and the like. and then compare those numbers. And then I would say, your gun is more likely to be used to kill one of your family members by someone else in the family than it is to protect you from harm of someone else. So if you say, well, I just want it for sport and for hunting, I said, okay. Then let's see if we make this a rule that you can own a gun for sport and hunting. Okay, so what kind of gun would that be? Okay, is it an automatic machine gun? Does Bambi strolling across your field of view require an assault rifle to kill? Well, no, it could, all right, so I think you can have these conversations.
Right.
And land where everyone agrees they want to land. But science is not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, but it will tell you whether what you think you should do is justified based on whatever argument you are presenting.
Yeah. Objective truths versus feelings.
Correct. If you want to kill people who kill people, so you want capital punishment, I would say, well, why do you want to do that? Well, that'll be a deterrent to other people. Well, let's look at the data. The data actually don't show that. There are people who will still commit murder even though they know the punishment is execution.
Right.
So that doesn't work. Well, is there a different? Well, for revenge. For revenge. Okay, well, if it's for revenge, and you later find out that you killed the wrong person, then you exacted revenge on the wrong person because the justice system has flaws in it. It has biases in it. Are you aware of these biases? So maybe we should work hard to get rid of the biases. Oh, then you find out that the person most likely to commit crime is the person at, near, or below the poverty level. So there's a correlation here between wealth and committing the kind of crime that would harm another person, separate from, as we say, white-collar crime,
Right.
where you embezzle money. So suppose you were born poor. That leaves you susceptible to just this kind of thing. So maybe, as you have that conversation, maybe we say, I know what we need. We need better programs to lift people out of poverty. Maybe we need to shore up the justice system so that no one is ever tried by accident, wrongfully.
And you talk about this.
So that shifts the priority.
Yeah, like how science can improve the current jury system.
Oh, well, that's a whole other thing, right? Because who do we choose as your jury? A jury of your peers. That's better than a jury of not your peers. So that's an improvement. And a jury of not your peers is better than no jury at all. And no jury at all is better than just the whims of the judge, is better than trial by ordeal, which is when they dunk you in the water, and if you die and your body sinks, it means you were guilty and the devil took you. If you die and your body floats, it meant you're innocent and God took you, but you're dead in both cases.
Right.
Okay? So this sequence of improved justice over the centuries, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right? So now,
But it can get better.
I think so. I don't want to, I'm tired of hearing people say, well, I know it makes mistakes, but it's the best we have. Let's improve it.
Correct.
And well, how might you improve it? Oh, I see what's happening here. Why does your lawyer cost more than my lawyer? Because your lawyer wins more cases. Is it because they're a better arguer? Well, okay. Well, should I lose just because you have a better lawyer, even if I'm not guilty? Right. Should that ever happen? Do the lawyers say, I protected these innocent people and kept them out of jail? That's not what they say. They say, I won this many cases.
Right. Regardless of your
Regardless.
innocence. Yeah.
Regardless. And so, who's on the jury? Are these people who are experts at the analysis of data? Because nowadays there's some data. They have expert witnesses and there's information, charts and things. If the analysis of data is the difference between determining whether someone is guilty or not guilty, then why not get 12 experts at data analysis?
Right.
Scientists are experts at that.
And this is how you propose something that was super popular and unpopular, and it was Earth needs a virtual country, rationalia, with one-line constitution. All policy shall be based on the weight of evidence.
Boom, one-line constitution.
Yeah.
That's it.
It would be great for all the ant farm.
For all of us. It's a virtual country, so you would say, I'm a citizen of that country because I ascribe to that ideal.
Rationalia. We should make passports and
Rationalia. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it'd be an entire thing. I'm not that, I don't have that much energy to do this, but it would be fun to have a flag and a passport.
Yeah.
A Rationalia passport. And just the Constitution, one line. That's it.
Yeah.
So justice in the world, are you after winning the case or are you after finding out what's true and what's not? Mm-hmm. And if a lawyer is going to reject someone who is highly trained at analytics, it means they don't want an analysis of data to override the results that they want the case to have.
Right.
And is that really justice? I don't think so. It's something else. Like I said, it's better than trial by non-peers.
Yeah. We have evolved in some
We
aspects.
have.
but we can get better.
We can get better, for sure. Unless you want emotions to matter. Unless you want a lawyer with passionate summary comments to sway a jury one way or another, regardless of the evidence. If that's the justice system you want, that's the justice system we have.
Now,
I'm kind of want to lean towards who's guilty and not guilty.
exactly. And guilty of what? How can we define rights if we go back to the right to be free, the right to be alive, like don't kill me, don't do anything against me, and the right to enjoying the consequences of your work.
Yeah, I think there's some deep stuff in there, like I have freedoms as long as they don't take away from your freedoms.
Right.
I have freedoms to say what I want, but now you want to dress half boy, half girl, and now I want to pass a law to prevent that? Really?
Yeah.
In what country is this that you want to engage that?
And you go even to talk about abortion, which is a big one on this. And you say, well, God makes more abortions than
Oh yeah, I just trying to say,
doctors.
if you're going to try to say that, again, I don't hand people opinions in this book.
No, you don't.
No.
You just put questions out and facts.
I put the questions and the facts. So I say, you are against abortions. Now, an interesting fact here, most people who are anti-abortion are also strongly religious.
Right.
Okay? So there's a religious force operating within them where they want to take the values of their religion and raise it to the level of law to affect other people who are not that religion, who are even in that religion but don't agree with those tenets. So that's a case where you have personal truths rising to the level of law, trying to influence others, which I said never ends well.
Right.
All right. So now, I just thought people should know that there are terms for what the fertilized embryo is from the day one all through full term. And it's a fetus until it's born, and other points is a zygote, and then there are other terms, biological terms. But people who are anti-abortion call all 9 months that
Baby.
you have a baby. Okay.
There's no continuum.
So that's correct. So that's tactical.
Hurricane 5 all the time.
Yeah, that's tactical to use their own language rather than that of the biologist to describe it. Just be self-aware of that, okay? All medical evidence tells us that there's a very high number of what we call spontaneous abortions. These are basically miscarriages. But many of those, the woman does not know it. It's chalked up as, oh, my period came after 5 weeks instead of 4, and it was slightly heavier, but that's it, let me move on.
Yeah.
Okay? Chances are there was an embryo in there. The body rejected it. Okay? There are many more of these than the woman even knows are going on. Okay? The body says, not this one, not that one. All right. So all I say in the book is, because once you add up these numbers, they're staggering.
Yeah.
All I say in the book is, if you are sure God is in charge of what's going on inside the female body, then God performs more abortions than all medical doctors do.
Yeah.
By factors of 2 or 3, depending on the stage. And so that's all I'm saying. So you don't want the medical doctor, but your God is performing abortions all the time. I don't hear you saying that God is murdering babies.
Yeah.
I don't hear you say that. So information for you. If you still want to create a law, okay, just be aware that your religion is primarily feeding your sentiments, and that same religion, your God is performing more abortions than medical doctors. Now, do what you're going to do.
And you can apply that to other laws that are implemented regarding immigration, regarding economic policy. Unfortunately, we are not supposed to live in theocracies, but sometimes we are.
Yeah, when it is, then it's the rules of the theocracy often are not founded in objective truths. They're founded in a revealed truths in a book that was divinely inspired. And I say they're not objective truths because they contain things that in many cases are not objectively true or objectively false, and in other cases they're just what you want to be true or need to be true as part of that religion.
Yeah.
Whether or not science has anything to say about it.
Right. There is a famous quote of Sam Harris that says, if we take all the religious books and we burn them and we don't have any evidence, the chances of making a new Bible or a new Torah are almost impossible.
It's essentially zero.
But
correct.
Scientific truths will always come to surface.
Right. One more other thing.
Yeah.
It's, the atheist doesn't believe in any gods, right? You go to most religions, I don't care what it is, but pick one, and say, what do you think of these other religions?
Yeah, they don't exist.
They say, no, they're crazy. Look what they believe.
Yeah.
Look at what they think.
They're all atheists from the God that there's not there.
Right. They're atheists to all other religions.
Right.
And so the only difference between a religious person and an atheist is one religion.
Yeah, that's true.
It's an interesting little way that gets looked at.
And on that note, I want to thank you for this amazing interview. And
it went long. I'm sorry I speak too much.
No,
I'm sorry.
It has been amazing and perfect. I could stay here for hours or days talking with you. But I really appreciate what you've done here, and it's beautiful to know that it's inspiration of your father, because he was a sociologist.
Yes, it's dedicated to him.
Yeah.
And I might read the dedication
of
just to get it precisely right. This book has traveled. What have you done with this book?
I told you, it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
You can tell that I actually read it.
Dedicated to the memory of Cyril deGrasse Tyson and all others who want to see the world as it could be rather than as it is. He was a sociologist, worked in the civil rights movement, just trying to make a better world. And he was never bitter. He just said, let's have a conversation, even with people who are vicious racists. He said, let's just sit down and have a conversation. And so I'm honored to have the occasion to bring my science to his craft.
And I'm very grateful for you to do that, because I believe that we need more objective truths in order to have better decisions in the world as leaders and as people just living in this planet, in one only planet. Thank you so much, Neil, for this interview.
And one last thought, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
If we elect our leaders, shouldn't we consider them our followers?
Boom.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That was Neil deGrasse Tyson for all of you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization, a must read for everybody. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.